Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it may be when you all are tuning into this broadcast. I am your international award winning author, literary extraordinaire, and awe inspiring coach, Toneal M. Jackson. And I wanted to welcome you all to another episode of Inspirational Talk with Toneal. I just wanted to let you all know that this is going to be a little bit of a different show. And just as you all come on, whether you come on via Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube, be sure to say hello. Let me know that you are watching. And then also feel free to like and share the video. And you can tag somebody that you believe would benefit from this broadcast. So, who would benefit from today's broadcast? Anybody who knows me knows that I born and raised in Chicago. So today's show is really going to be hitting home to all of my Chicagoans specifically. We're talking about current events on today. And so it's a range of things that's going on in Chicago. And so I kind of want to talk about those things. And then we'll also kind of hit on what's going on, not just in Chicago, but Illinois, Cook County. So, like all of that part of the world today. So, a lot of times when I do different events, it really kind of affects, like either a nationwide situation and even global topics, right? Or things that could affect anybody within the world. But today is really more of a localized show. And so for all of my people who reside in Illinois, in Cook County, in the city of Chicago, all of those three things are the people who would be affected by today's broadcast. And so before I jump right in, I want to do my due diligence and remind you guys that I am specifically supposed to be on live at 5. Y'all say a prayer. Please say a prayer. I am still working with my time. And so I know I'm a little bit after 5 o'clock, but again, I am back running live every day. I'm still deciding whether or not I'll be live on Facebook on Wednesdays, right? So on Mondays is our APS day, aka Aspects of Entrepreneurship. If you missed yesterday's show, I told you my caption was "Don't write the book," and so I know it took a lot of people by storm, especially being a literary extraordinaire, for me to be advising you to not write the book. But if you want more explanation about that, then again, go ahead and watch the video from yesterday. It is streaming on our page, Educated and Empowered, as well as Educated and Empowered on Instagram. But on Mondays, we do aspects of entrepreneurship. Hey, Miss Rochelle. On Tuesdays, we typically it's inspirational talk with Tennille on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Typically, I will have a woman guest with me on Tuesdays, and then on Thursdays, it's typically going to be a black male. We are getting everything up and rebooted, so I may not have special guests this week, but that's just what you can look forward to. And then on Fridays is our actual show, Educated and Empowered, where we talk about a variety of topics, right? And so on Wednesdays, that's the only day that I don't specifically go live on Facebook or Instagram. But what I will be doing is uploading new, whether they be podcast episodes or even TikTok videos, so you will be able to still find me on Wednesdays, just on different platforms. So that's pretty much the main announcements that I want to provide for you guys on today. And so let's kind of jump into today's topic. And so I am talking about the title I put on the broadcast is "What is going on in the world?" Right? So there's a lot of stuff that's going on. On a global perspective, we're still affected by this coronavirus at length, right? So we've gone from coronavirus to its cousin Delta variant, and then we can't just stop with "Hey, Mr. Better, Happy New Year to you as well." And matter of fact, let me say that to everybody: Happy New Year. If you didn't catch me on yesterday, then Happy New Year. And I guess I should say that all week long, right? We are still in the first week of the brand new year 2022, and my best wishes sent out to all of you. But yeah, so it's just been kind of crazy crazy because this pandemic and this virus specifically is like that unwanted family member that won't leave. Like, not only are they staying around, but then they have to invite their friends and their family too, right? So you done already worn out your welcome, and now you done brought some other folks with you. Have anybody ever experienced that? Whether you had, quote unquote friend, and you didn't necessarily invite them to come, and you like, okay, I'm gonna try to be patient and see what you're gonna do, and now I'm ready for you to go. But then they call somebody else in, or they just kind of make their home and your home, and they don't want to leave. Well, that's what's going on with Corona, right? So we started out from within the United States. March of 2020, has almost been 2 years where this entire situation started, where we became familiarized with coronavirus, where the world as we knew it, specifically in the United States, but the world at large was dealing with this pandemic. But those of us in the US, I can only speak for us because this is where I'm from, and specifically in Chicago, because again, this show will be more so the topics are kind of localized, but I'm starting out bigger picture, macro to micro. And so, we went from Corona, then we had her cousin Delta, and then Delta, didn't stay long before she invited Omicron. And so, as we know now that prior to Omicron coming in, we kind of got quote unquote assistance with these vaccinations. So there was a lot of experimentation going on with various vaccines. So whether it was Moderna or Johnson and Johnson or Pfizer, hey Miss Mary, there were a lot of different vaccinations that were coming into play. And pretty much everybody, and specifically Dr. Fauci, was really encouraging everybody, go and get vaccinated, right? And so the jury was out. A lot of people, and even now there are still a lot of people who are not vaccinated, but the jury was out because it seemed to be very experimental. And so what seemed to be happening was people were kind of feeling like the days of Tuskegee had been renewed, right? Where we were being human guinea pigs. And so a lot of people were not the first to jump in line to be vaccinated with what seemed to be an experimental drug, right? Because we were not sure whether or not this was going to actually cure corona. And if we're being honest, which you guys know, I try my best to be as transparent as possible. The jury's out still for many people. Many people still are not convinced that this is the true cure. That there's still a lot of experimentation that's happening. However, what has now happened as of January 3rd in Chicago is that whether you like it or not, whether you were a fan of vaccinations or not, in many, many parts of the city, our mayor, Lori Lightfoot, has mandated that if you want to go to theaters, so movie theaters or any type of live entertainment, if you want to go to gyms, so like fitness clubs, if you want to go to sit down dining restaurants, hey Miss Charlisa, that you must show proof of vaccination. And so what I want to do today, again, you all know me, those of you who know me know that I am not one, I don't consider myself controversial, but I am a conversationalist. I am one who loves to generate dialogue. And when I say dialogue, we don't always have to agree, but we need to be able to be mindful and respectful of others in giving our perspective. Because at the end of the day, we all have an opinion, but it's just that it is an opinion, right? And even the scientists, if we're being honest, they don't necessarily know, but they are a little bit more educated about certain things than we are. And so one of the questions that I have, because we're going to be talking about three things on today. Today, I'm talking about the vaccine mandate, because this is a current events show. So I'm talking about the vaccine mandate. I am talking about remote learning possibly being reinstated, and then I'm talking about the MWRD candidacy. So I'm going to spend a few minutes on each topic, and I would like for you guys to kind of chime in. So my question to you all that I would love for you to start posting your comments to, and I'll keep it going. But what are your thoughts? Do you feel that it should be able to be mandated that people have to be vaccinated to go to these respective places that I just named? So again, if you reside in the city of Chicago, as of yesterday, January 3rd, the mandate states that in order to go to public places, specifically restaurants, specifically fitness clubs and gyms, specifically live entertainment places. So theaters, think about like basketball arenas, things like that, where there are a lot of people gathering. It is mandated that you show proof of vaccination. So the question that I'm posing is, do you agree with that mandate? There are many, specifically restaurant owners in Chicago. Hey, Miss Charlena. There are many restaurant owners who are opposed to the idea of the vaccination requirement because they know that it is going to hurt their business. There are some owners who have been successful already in being able to fight it, and that is outside of Chicago limits. I have not, in full disclosure, I have not watched the news yesterday or today to see if there were many in Chicago, but I know that the mayor of a suburb was opposed to the idea of making it mandatory. So again, this is why I'm saying with this particular segment, this is really for those that are in Chicago, but many small business owners, specifically within those industries that I named, and so I don't want to even just say small business owners, but business owners, period, within those industries are opposed to the concept of it being the fact that it has to be mandatory for there to be a vaccination, right? So, what are your thoughts on that? Do you feel that it should be mandated? Do you feel that the city should be able to mandate whether or not you are vaccinated, or do you feel that that should still be freedom of choice? So while I'm talking, again, I always give you guys full disclosure because you can like me or not. If you don't agree with what I'm saying, it's my show, you know. But so Tavetta says, no, I believe every human body should have human rights about what happens to their body. And Tavetta, you and I are both of agreement in that regard, right? So full disclosure, and I have stated it before, I am fully vaccinated. Full disclosure, I was not one who actually believed and vaccination. So let me clarify so that way it doesn't come across as though I'm being hypocritical. So I was not one of those who was the first in line to being vaccinated because I didn't necessarily believe that the vaccinations as we knew them, right? So this Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson. I was one of the skeptics in believing that the vaccination was the cure, because my belief was, if it is the cure, then why do we have to have so many variations of the same thing, right? I was one of the ones who believed that we were kind of being human guinea pigs. That said, I was being socially responsible at the time. So I was still staying in my house. I was still quarantined while the jury was still out, until I decided what I wanted to do. I was being socially responsible. I was not going around other people, like large groups of people. And in the times when I had to, then I was wearing a mask. I was practicing social distance, as they had previously said was the right thing and the safe thing to do at the time. As things began to happen more and more, as I began to either lose family members or constantly see people that I knew be infected by this virus, what for me convinced me to get vaccinated was the fact that I did not want to be somebody else's downfall, right? I did not. So whether or not I believed the vaccination to be the cure no longer was my first mindset. It was, I don't want to, because you can't dispute the numbers, and you can't dispute when you're seeing it in your face, when you see it in your family or amongst people that you know. So facts are that the coronavirus, Delta variant, and Omicron, facts are that it is real. Like, this isn't something that's going to be going away tomorrow, you know. And so for me, it was a point that, okay, while I don't know that the virus is not the cure, I don't know that it is the cure, I don't know that it's not the cure either. And so at the end of the day, I don't want to go um around other people, and let's say that I happen to be a carrier, and so maybe I'm not affected, but then if me carrying it affects someone else, I don't know how that will affect them. So that thought alone was enough for me to say, I want to be vaccinated. I'm going to be vaccinated. And even in that, I did not force my children to be vaccinated. Their father and I, we sat down and we had a conversation with them. We explained to them the facts. Going back to, again, to Tavetta's point, I believe that every body, literal body, each body should be able to choose what goes into their body. The only issue that I have, I don't like the freedom of choice being taken away. But then at the end of the day, there's going to be somebody to say, well, when you're not vaccinated, just like any other type of inoculations, right? When we send our children to school, I am one that makes sure that my children have their vaccines, you know, before they go to school. And so someone is going to argue the point to say, well, you're taking away someone else's freedom of choice if you indeed infect them, right? And so I, in this case, I don't know that there is a right or a wrong. All I know is that I have lost loved ones be, because of this virus, right? Um, and I don't want to be the cause to make that be someone else's reality. Mary Hale says, I believe that someone is not telling the whole truth. Let me read the finish reading the statement. She says, I believe that someone is not telling the whole truth about the virus. I got my shots because I'm over 65. I did not want to spread the virus, and I did not want to have the virus. Mary Jackson says, or Mary Millsap says, yes, I do. I do. This is really killing people. I feel it should have been done. So I feel everyone who doesn't like it, Mary, Mary, this is supposed to be respectful dialogue. You can't be going telling people all willy nilly to go kick rocks. Like, that is just okay. So look, but let me finish. She says, I want to live without going out to worry about people who is not vaccinated. So here's the thing. This is what we have to understand. Again, I want to say that we want to have a respectful dialogue, right? So whatever our opinions are, it's just that it's our opinions. We do not have to wish anyone else ill, or say negative things about people who are not of the same mindset as we are. But here is my point: for those who may not be in agreement to the vaccination, you don't, for whatever your reasons are, whether they are religious reasons, whether they are personal reasons, right? Because everything ain't always so deep. Sometimes we just don't want to be vaccinated. We just don't want to do what's being told to do. And that's your right, right? But if you are going to choose, and this is my personal plea, if you are going to choose to not be vaccinated, if you are going to choose to allow yourself to be a carrier, then be fully responsible socially, right? So that is your personal choice. So true. But don't take away someone else's, right? Mary Hill says that she's over 65. So even if you don't believe in the vaccine, we have to respect the fact that someone else does, right? The Bible says if eating meat offends your brother, not to eat meat. Never said that eating meat was wrong. So the offense comes in offending your brother. So if I know that my brother is a vegetarian, it doesn't mean that I have to become a vegetarian, but it means that in the presence of my brother that I should not eat meat because I am not trying to offend or hinder him, right? So from a societal perspective as it pertains to this virus, you have every right, if you do not want to have your, because some people feel that the vaccination is poisonous, or they don't know what's in it, or whatever the rationale may be, and you have every right to feel how you feel. But if that is how you feel, if you want to not be in compliance, right, and you decide that I don't want to be vaccinated, then number one, be socially responsible and do not put others in harm's way. Just because you don't believe in it, don't automatically put that burden on someone else. That's number one. Number two, be truthful about your vaccination status. I have seen personally and I have heard of people going out and buying vaccination cards. So people are, it's illegal, obviously. But the fact is that people are going out and purchasing vaccination cards without being fully vaccinated. So here is my point: if this is your decision that you don't want to be vaccinated, then own it. Don't lie about it. Don't manipulate the facts. Don't try to get over on somebody and then put somebody else in harm's way. If you don't want to be vaccinated, then remain socially responsible, right? Make sure that you are taking COVID tests at least once a week. Make sure that when you go places, you have your mask on, that you are practicing social distance, right? So if you're not going to comply to the vaccination, then at least do as much as you can to maintain social responsibility so that you don't infect someone else, right? So that is my plea to that one. And I want to let me end with Mary's comment. She says this virus was around when she was a child. It was mandated at that time, but it was the same scenario. And that's the thing, like there's nothing new under the sun. There's always going to be some type of something that's around, right? So again, so for those, in closing with this particular segment, those of you who live in Chicago, whether you like it or not, until further notice, um, when you go somewhere publicly, you're going to want to be vaccinated. What I have read is that you can either physically carry around your vaccination card, or you can take a picture of it on your phone. Now, that one, I have not seen it happen yet. Like I sent my children to school with theirs and they haven't told me that it didn't work. But I read that you can either physically take your vaccination card with you, or you can take a picture of it and have it in your phone, so that way you can present it when you go to these various places. I have not been out in public places yet. Those of you again who know, I've been totally transparent. I indeed was one who tested positive for COVID, so I had been down for a moment, but I did not have extreme symptoms. So I want to, full disclosure, give you guys all of that. I didn't really have a lot of huge symptoms. I had some fatigue, a lot of congestion, and headache, but I dare not complain. And yesterday, I went and got tested, and I've tested negative. So I am happy to have rid corona, COVID, whatever. I'm glad to be negative again. But again, so for that reason, I haven't, other than going to be tested yesterday, I have not been to any public places, and I probably will not be in any public places at least for the rest of this week. Again, just trying to be socially responsible, right? So other than going live, I'm not really going outside. Like I'm not even the one one that's taking my children to school this week. I am trying to just fully stay in the house until I feel 100% better, despite what the test said. I still want to just use wisdom in that regard. But if you all do go out, um, don't cause a problem, y'all. Don't act like you don't know what the mandate is and then being all ugly when you go somewhere and somebody asks you for your vaccination card. If you live in Chicago, you know that this is the mandate. So make sure that you just take your vaccination card with you, or again, take a picture of it so that way it's in your phone. Don't go out acting all ugly when people are asking you to present your proof of vaccination, because we know what it is. This is the time that we're living in. And until further notice, it just is what it is, right? So, Charlena says, exactly. If you don't want to be vaccinated, do your part. Wear your mask when you're around people. And for the ones who are buying the vaccination cards, just know that card is not going to keep you from dying or keeping you out of the hospital when your symptoms are bad. Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. And so, while we're talking about, schools and vaccinations and mandates and all of that, let's segue to our next topic, shall we? Again, those of you who are part of Chicago and you have children, specifically children within the Chicago public school system, then this topic is for you. So it's so funny because I was just telling Jerome the other day, I said, you know what? It would not surprise me if we start hearing about this whole remote learning situation being a possibility again. And he's like, why? I said, because if it's being stated that Omicron is way more contagious than coronavirus was, and if they shut down everything when Corona came out, and this is way more contagious, then to me, it just kind of seemed like the writing on the wall that that might be some talk of the town. So what do you know? Yesterday, what did you know? CBS Chicago reports, well, the teachers union they're like, we don't want to keep on putting our lives in danger, because again, for those of you who are parents or of children in CPS schools, like on the last day of school before their winter break, they were sent home with take home COVID tests. Okay. Now, everything I'm finna say to you right now are facts. This is not Toneal's opinion. I'm finna tell you all facts. They sent home children with take home COVID tests. The instructions were on Tuesday, December 28th, that they were supposed to take the test and then send it back in so that way they could have their results before re entering the school system. Now, how many of y'all know that that just was not like, is it just me, but could anybody else see anything potentially going wrong with that? You tell every student, you tell every student in Chicago public school to take and return the test the same day. Is there anybody else other than me that could see anything that could potentially be wrong with that plan? Anything that could potentially go wrong when you got thousands, tens of thousands of students all told to send in their stuff the same day? Let's keep going with the facts, right? So I know they said it was over 35,000 tests that were returned. Of those over 35,000, 24,000 plus, so right at 25,000 were rendered invalid. So that means that of the 35,000, you had about 10,000 that actually were able to be read and given, like they were read properly. Okay, the right response was taken. 25,000 invalid, rendered invalid. Whether it was because they could no longer see it, they got it back too late, there were problems with deliveries, you think. So, and of the ones they were able to read, 1,000, this is the actual number, 1,000 1,870 students of the 10,000 that were rendered valid, 1,870 of those came back positive. Okay. So I'm giving you guys these facts before I go into the main story, because if you are a teacher, where would you be in this argument, right? There are teachers within the union that's saying we don't want to come back to school. We would prefer to go back to remote learning. Um, Charlena, girl, that's a whole nother discussion. This is a whole nother discussion about how long are the tests rendered valid. You send in, you tell these kids to take a test on Tuesday. And again, this is not me making it up. Like, I literally have emails from CPS, because I still have three children in the Chicago public school system. Three emails from their school saying, don't forget, Tuesday, December 28th is the day that your child is supposed to be taking the test, and make sure you send it back. They didn't go back to school until Monday. So you send them a test on Tuesday. You want them to send it back in. For the record, I did not do that. I'm just being very honest. I did not do that because, again, I'm giving y'all full and total disclosure. My children did not even have the take home test, because I was a part of that group of parents who decided not to send my children to school the last day of school. Because if you guys remember, it was the whole threat about how all of the schools were going to, it was this hit list or whatever. Obviously, it turned out to be a false alarm. But specifically with the school, with so two of my children go to the same school because they're in high school, and the other one is in grammar school. But for the two that goes to high school, that hit list concept was not far-fetched, because they had already had something similar that not had transpired in terms of just the little threat, but that had actually happened. So for me, I was not like, their school had already had some gun issues, some shooting issues at their school, around their school, and in the neighborhood for the months of September and October. And so for me, that threat was very real because they had already lived it. And for one of my two daughters, she was extremely frightened because they had just lived through this. And so I was one of those parents that did buy into the hit list. I did not send my children to school because for me, I could not afford to be wrong. I could not afford to say, oh, well, this is nothing but just propaganda. And so we're going to disregard it and we're going to send you to school. And then what if I was wrong? Couldn't afford to live with myself in making that wrong decision. So again, I'm grateful that I was wrong and that nothing did transpire as a result of it. But the point is, they did not receive the take home test that the other students did because they were not at school on that Friday. In either case, because me and two of my daughters had tested positive, I was going to have my children tested anyway before they went to school, because I'm not sending my children to school if they're positive, right? Absolutely, to better safe than sorry. And so we had because, like I say, me, Autumn, and Ariana had been going through COVID and dealing with everything related to that for a minute anyway. So as it was time to come back to school again, I had already independently tested my children. But here's the point: we're talking about the CTU, so Chicago Teachers Union, meeting tonight to decide whether or not they are going to implement remote learning, if they're going to go back to remote learning. So the question on the floor right now is, if you were the teacher, do you feel that that is the right option? Or matter of fact, you know what? We ain't gonna need to be a teacher. Be a parent. Be a parent. What do you feel should be done? Like, would you be angry if it was announced? Because they will be announcing it. They will be announcing it tonight, because this is like right now, real time, what's going on right now. So as a parent, Will you be angry if you hear that it is voted upon to reenact um, remote learning? Because they're saying that like it's being said that it literally could go into effect as soon as tomorrow. Okay, so it all comes down to what it is that they are going to vote on today. Now we know that, the teachers have done strikes before. We've dealt with some situations before. We don't know how it's going to pan out. So we're not talking about, we don't actually know the future. Nobody knows but God. But I'm just asking for the sake of dialogue. Um, how would you feel if you got the news, oh, your children are now going to have to resume with remote learning, meaning they're not going to the building, that they have to learn from home? What would your response be? Are you angry or are you relieved? And you just kind of put that in in the comment section. Are you angry or are you relieved? Right? And if you want to go into the reason why, feel free. So would you be angry or relieved? So as a parent, I'm on the fence. Okay, so can I just be honest? As a parent, I'm on the fence. I totally understand the teacher's purview because, again, having children in the Chicago public school systems, every day I'm getting emails that said a student tested positive, but don't worry, we're just letting you know because we have to let you know, but we've identified the student and we made sure that they're not coming back. So as a teacher, I can definitively understand where the nervousness and the anxiety can stem from, right? Because you don't know what underlying conditions these teachers may have as well. Because again, maybe the teachers are vaccinated, maybe they're not. Let's assume that they're all vaccinated. Let's assume every teacher is vaccinated. We know from experience that you can still be vaccinated and yet get COVID. And although they have said, although doctors have said that the symptoms are way less severe if you are vaccinated, again, you don't know what this virus will or can do in conjunction with other underlying medical conditions. So I understand why a teacher may fear for their lives, right? Because at the end of the day, once upon a time, back in the good old days, teachers just had to be afraid of students, coming to school with guns and violence and stuff like that. Now, even if they don't come to school with a physical gun, if they are not vaccinated, you're still able to get hurt. And many of these students are not vaccinated. Most of the schools have masks. So just in case you got students that don't come to school with masks, they give the mask, but they're coming, they're coughing, they're spreading germs. And these ain't just like the good old germs of our days, y'all. So like anybody in my age group, 40 on and up, we had germs that was all right. You just start coughing, and nowadays you cough all over your hands. This is just so nasty. But you cough all on your hands, cough all in the air. Did not really happen. You might have got a cold, you might even got the flu, but you sneezed a couple times. You had like some Theraflu, or you got a blanket, or your grandma might have made you a hot toddy or something like that. Then boom, you was done. These germs nowadays, these germs is taking folks up out of here, right? So again, if I'm a teacher, I understand their perspective. I understand their concern. As a parent, um, so now when I say as a parent, I'm gonna break it up, me specifically versus putting myself in the shoes of other parents. Me specifically, I am fortunate that the way that my house is set up, everybody can be in their own room and have their own space to do a personal learning situation, right? So remote learning. So it's not going to be an issue for them. I am and have always been a very hands-on parent. So I am going to make sure that my children they're doing their homework. I'm helping them with their homework. Food, them eating 2, 3, 4 times a day is not an issue. So the things that, like, I've never been the parent that is depending on the school systems to teach my children. Whether I send them to school or not, I'm teaching my children. Whether I send them to school or not, I'm feeding my children. Okay. Now that said, I know firsthand that is not every parent's testimony, not because they're not good parents, but everybody's situation is different. Some of the reasons why they decided to end the remote learning in the first place was because there were many children who were depending on being fed at school in order to eat. And whether that is a situation that you can fathom or not to be true, I'm telling you that it is true. There are many students that if they don't come to school to eat, there is nothing at home for them to eat. And so trying to deal with hunger was a huge issue, and it was a huge reason why they decided to re-implement the classes. Because if you remember, they still had the times during the remote learning periods where parents could come and pick up breakfast for their children, or pick up a bag or something like that every day to make sure that they were fed. They had, I believe it's like the pandemic link to make sure that you could at least use those monies to make sure that you're buying food for your children to make sure that they're eating, right? So as a parent, my heart goes out for any households that don't have enough food to feed their children. And I get it, like food is getting more and more expensive every day. And depending on how many children are in the household, depending on what employment situations look like, it's not always easy. And the fact is that every parent is not a drug addict, a drug dealer. Every parent ain't trifling. There are a lot of parents that are out here legitimately working, hustling, struggling, doing all they can to make ends meet, and they don't have it to have the extra. They may make too much money to be awarded, link or public aid, but they don't make enough money to pay all of their bills. And you see what I'm saying? And I'm sure I have parents out here that understand, even if it's not your situation, you've either been there or you can at least have empathy for that situation. So no, I don't feel like our students should suffer. Our children should not suffer by not having food to eat, right? And then you have the whole social situation where there are a lot of students who, or children who, if they don't go to school, they don't have friends. They don't have an outlet. For some of the children, their homes are abusive homes. So the only times where they had to have some type of release was when they were able to go to school. And so I know that the argument from teachers, because again, y'all remember we went back and forth with this all of 2020. All of 2020, we were going back and forth with this, where the teachers are like, we hear that and we do have a heart, but we're not paid to be babysitters. Like, we're educators, not babysitters. Like, it's not our job to end hunger for your students. We're not paid to make sure that your student has a playmate. We're not paid to make sure that you have a babysitter and you don't have to stay home. Because again, there are parents out there who don't have babysitters, so that when you make remote learning an actual mandate and there is no choice, who's going to stay home with my child? And so um it's a hard one. It's a hard one. I don't know, how you guys feel or what your personal opinion is on it, but it's really difficult to say what the quote unquote right thing to do is, because at the end of the day, you don't want anybody getting sick unnecessarily, teachers, students, and anybody else in between. You don't want for anybody to get sick. The fact is that we don't know when this virus, if this virus is, well, we pray that the virus will come to an end, but we don't know when it's coming to an end. We don't know whether or not it's going to mutate beyond Omicron, right? Because we thought we had coronavirus under control, then you broke out in Delta, then you broke out in Omicron, Omicron. So who's to say that there won't be any additional mutations? And I'm not trying to be the bearer of bad news, y'all, but I'm just giving it to y'all real. Who's to say that it won't mutate anymore? Who's to say that we're at the end of the virus? So you understand both sides. You don't want anyone to be sick unnecessarily, and at the same time you want what's best for the children. And the fact is that there was a difference in learning remotely versus learning in the classroom. There were a lot of children who were struggling because they did not have the right type of learning environment. It's very loud at home, or they didn't have their own space. They didn't have people at home helping them, and then having a teacher having to attend to all of these different students, there was no time for them. So learning definitively suffered, right? And so it's really just hard to say what to do, because you're like, and I did a show about this. I want to say, if I didn't do it in 2020, I did in 2021, which was our children becoming collateral damage because of coronavirus. Because at the end of the day, you understand that everybody's health should be first, but at the same time, while we're protecting everybody's health, our children's education is also suffering. And not just the school education, but so many different developmental aspects that are received from being in a school environment suffers as a result. And so that was just that aspect of it. Just putting it out there for you guys. So be aware, especially those of you who are in Chicago. Be watching the news, because they are supposed to announce what they're going to decide to do moving forward. And they're supposed to make that announcement tonight. And then finally, want to talk about this MWRD candidacy, right? So MWRD standing for Metropolitan Water Reclamation District. And if you haven't gotten the news yet, your girl, me, I am officially a candidate for this position, is the commissioner for the board of MWRD, right? And I have officially been endorsed by the Green Party. And so I had someone say to me, matter of fact, I've had a couple different people, but I want to address this. I had someone say, like, but I didn't know that you were like in the politics, and I don't see you as a politician. So why would you even want to get involved in that world? And so I want to just take a couple minutes to address that. I don't see myself as a politician. I don't believe me to be a politician. I just happen to be running for for a governmental office, right? Um and it's a couple reasons for that. I'll start with the natural and then I'll move to spiritual. Naturally speaking, being a member of the Green Party, for those of you who do not know, is an independent political party. Mostly everybody talks about the red and the blue. So Republican and Democrats. People know all about Republican and Democrats. Very few people know about the Green Party. Very few people know about like our core values or anything like that, right? So I personally happened to stumble upon the Green Party about a year and a half ago. And I encourage you, if you have not or you don't know about the Green Party, I encourage you to go to the website, which is www.ilgp.org. So Illinois Green Party, ilgp.org. And you will read about, if nothing else, you'll see the 10 core values that we possess, our belief system. And when I read this, I'm like, oh my goodness, like they believe the same things that I believe. They believe in social justice. They believe in grassroots democracy. They believe in feminism and gender equity and racial, all of these different things that I kind of have, these beliefs that I have kind of bound my life by and followed, is what they believe in as well, right? And so for me, if you know a thing about me, you know that I believe in, I typically am gravitated toward those that everybody else tends to shun, right? I mean, my business is called Artist Promoting Success. So what I do is I bring awareness to issues, to people, to things that mainstream doesn't typically give daylight to, right? I For independence, my whole thing is I've always created platforms to help independents least get exposure. In a sentence, I educate and empower. That's what I do. So I teach people what it means to be in whatever the space is, and then I empower you by bringing education, by letting you know what type of choices and options exist. And in most times, I'm providing platforms. So I'm not just telling you this is what's possible, but I'm showing you that this is what's possible. Even when mainstream is telling you you're not good enough, what you have isn't good enough to belong and to fit where we are, we create our own, right? And so with the Green Party, it is one of the reasons why it is my honor to run to represent them is number one, because I believe that it will help more people to be enlightened on what it means to be green, right? That you'll understand that you don't have to go with a mainstream party, that you have somewhere that you can fit. You have a party that believes in the types of things that you believe in, so you don't have to change who you are to fit into either the red or the blue system, right? And then from a spiritual perspective, again, um God places his people everywhere. Just because you believe in God does not mean that the only place you will be found is in the church, right? Like, if you are a real believer, you understand that you are the church. So everywhere that you go, you take God with you. And so for me, I know that this is a God assignment, because Toneal was not interested. It was prophesied to me a few different times by a few different people. Probably about the earliest prophecy I remember about this is probably about 5 years ago. And at that time, like, I don't know who you're talking to, because she don't do politics. And it came back again and again. And so it just became this thing where, um, I don't know. I heard God's voice, and I know that this is what it is that I'm supposed to do. For how long? I don't know, but I know that right now this is the season that I'm in. And so, even greater than this position, it's about being obedient, right? And you never know, and this is just a generic life lesson, you never know the reward that your obedience has for you. And so, in either case, for me, you guys, I told you guys before when I made the initial announcement, you'll be hearing more about this, and I will be taking you on this journey. I will be helping you to see the behind the scenes of what it means to campaign. And anybody who wants to help me, who wants to volunteer to gather signatures, we actually start that January 13th. We have 8 weeks to gather X amount of signatures, so that in doing so, then we will have my name on the ballot. And what I'm officially running for, there are two different types of positions within MWRD. You can either have a 2 year term or a 6 year term. So I am running for a 2 year term. And so in either case, I definitively need y'all help. Like, don't stop believing in me now. And the great thing about this is, if you live in Cook County holistically, so it's not a particular ward, it's not just the city of Chicago, and the county of Cook is such a vast area, right? So if there's anybody, whether you guys are watching this now or on the replay, and if you want to volunteer your time and you want to be a part of what this journey is, feel free to inbox me, connect with me. I would love to have you as part of the committee. Absolutely. But this is not a Tennille thing. This is definitively a God thing. And any of you who are believers understands that God is bigger and greater than all of these things. And so we're just doing things a little bit different, right? So it has nothing to do with me being a politician. Because again, even if I hold certain offices, I am not a politician. I'm a believer. That's what I am, regardless of the title. And I have a lot of titles, y'all. I got a whole lot of titles. But again, if you know me, I'm not concerned about the titles, never have been. I am more concerned about the work. And so I would love you all support as we begin to set things up. I'll let you know where you can meet me and my team. If you're trying, because we're gonna need your signatures, right? So I'm encouraging everyone, if you're not already registered to vote, please register to vote. If you're at least 18 years old, you live in Cook County, and you want to help to get me in that seat so we can start seeing things different. Educated and empowered, our tagline is changing the way we see history, right? And so politics does not always have to equal scandal and negativity, right? But we have to be a part of the change that we want to see. So, in either case, guys, that is my time for today. Again, I will not be live tomorrow here, but I will be uploading a new episode to my podcast, Educated and Empowered, which you can subscribe to. It is on Anchor .fm, and I'm gonna see if I can do this here, y'all. I would say a prayer, if I can, because y'all know I don't type and talk at the same time. So, and I pray that this is the right way to input this. But you can do anchor.fm/educated and empowered. If you have not already listened to some of my broadcasts, feel free to do so by going there. But that is what I will be looking to do on Wednesdays. I'll upload a new podcast, and then I'm working on these TikTok videos, y'all. So I'm looking to have a new video uploaded for you guys to look at. But thank you all so much. And again, if you have enjoyed this, then I ask that you hit the like and the share button, and also tag somebody that you believe will benefit from this broadcast. But you will catch me again Thursday with another episode of Inspirational Talk with Toneal. Thank you all so much. And until next time, you all stay inspired.